Alrighty, not to brag, but this show is loaded with money-making fantasy advice. Thanks for watching The Sweat, y'all. She's Jessie. I'm Emerson. On the program tonight, who to pay up for on a big 11-game slate around the NHL. Oh, and the Cardinals hire Ryan Gosling 2.0 to be their head coach.
Swoon. Good for you, Arizona.
Swoon.
But let's get this party started with our NBA panel tonight. DK Live's Julian Edlow, Matt LaMarca of the Action Network, and Karin Phillips of the New York Daily News.
First things first, let's put a DraftKings spin on today's NBA headlines. Nice work there. Starting with Devin Booker, who left Sunday night's game with back spasms, is unlikely to play tonight against the Kings. So who picks up the slack in his place, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a collective effort, obviously. Devin Booker is basically the entire Suns offense at this point. So it's going to take a few guys to try and replicate what he does. I really like Josh Jackson at 4,900. He's going to move into the starting lineup. I think he's sort of the most obvious candidate to, score some additional fantasy points. He's gone for over 30 DK points in 2 of his past 3 games. Also looking at DeAnthony Melton at 4,100 at point guard. He's seen the biggest usage bump in games without Booker this season. So I think those are the 2 primary guys, but it's going to be a team effort.
Karin, what do you think? Booker's listed as doubtful, so who's going to have to pick up the slack here?
This is my colleague said, this is going to be a community effort, guys. We're going to need a lot of guys to pitch in on this one because if Devin Booker's not out there, it's probably going to end in a loss, as most Suns games do. But I like T.J. Warren. I know he's been second on the team in scoring, and if you follow his career all the way back at Brewster Academy, even in his 1-year stop at NC State, he's always been a guy that can get the ball in the bucket a lot if he's the focal point. And with Booker not there, why not give it to your second guy who's putting up the most points on your team? But he'll also need a lot of help from the rest of his teammates tonight.
Jules, you on board with what these gentlemen have said? It's going to be more of a community-type effort?
Yeah, these guys are spot on, and it's really an awesome matchup for the Suns not to have Booker in terms of capitalizing on this value because they're going up against the Kings, who are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, yet play at one of the fastest paces. So I'm on the same names as these guys. To order them for you, I would say Josh Jackson's probably the best play at 4,900, stepping into that starting role. Then DeAnthony Melton makes for that really nice value, and then you've got T.J. Warren, who's up in the 7,000s. He's a little bit expensive, but he definitely has 40 to 50 point DK point upside in this game. So those are the 3 guys right there. Maybe the only other guy is DeAndre Ayton that we can add into the mix. He doesn't necessarily get any extra minutes because Booker's out. They're not at all going to be in the same rotation in terms of position, but it could be a spot where maybe Ayton gets a few more looks, and Sacramento's terrible defensively against centers.
Guys, despite all the reported drama between Sixers head coach Brett Brown and Jimmy Butler, things are apparently all good between them, according to Brown.
Oh.
So Butler has been hot and cold since joining Philly. Oh, well, Karin, let's start with you. How real is this drama? And is Butler a good play tonight against the Wiz for 7,500? You seem to think all is not good.
Listen, every time we talk about Jimmy Butler on this show, you realize how excited I get. Like, Jimmy Butler's in some more drama. I can't wait for this. This drama is real because everything that Jimmy Butler is saying about Brett Brown's coaching philosophies on offense is absolutely true. So would you play him tonight? Of course, because as we saw in that pregame scrimmage, when Jimmy is pissed off, Jimmy goes off. And that's good for you if you're going to buy him in DraftKings points.
Julian, is the drama real? And when Jimmy's pissed off, does he go off?
I mean, I don't really care if the drama is real or not. I guess it could be because with Jimmy Butler, it usually is. But I don't want any part of Jimmy Butler in this spot. He's missed some time with that respiratory infection, 2 or 3 games there. And prior to that, if there was any drama going on, it was not helping Butler. 31 DraftKings points in his last game in a really good matchup against the Clippers. Prior to that, 18 DraftKings points against the Blazers, 28 DraftKings points against Utah. Tougher matchups, but he played between 26 and 36 minutes in all of those games and came up between like 3 and 4 times value. We're looking for 5 to 6 times value on this slate. There's a lot of good plays, so I don't need to dip down to Jimmy Butler at 7,500. Give me T.J. Warren at a similar price point in that really good matchup against Sacramento with no Devin Booker.
Matt, is he a good play for 7,500 against the Wizards?
Well, I saw Karen raising his hand. I'm curious what he has to say.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to add that respiratory infection is the fakest injury in the NBA. I remember covering games, and every time you see respiratory infection next to a guy, that means he's tired, hungover, drunk, or the team is taking.
Wait, currently drunk?
January 1st? That's a week.
Listen,
on a bender.
I covered the Sixers during the process when they were taking games. Half the roster had a respiratory infection. It's impossible. They're not drinking Theraflu. They're not eating chicken soup. Jimmy Butler's fine. That's just what they put down when they don't want to play a guy is a respiratory infection. Trust me.
I tend to have those on Sunday mornings.
That's weird.
Yes.
Weird.
Is this
Matt? No, we didn't really get Matt's take.
Yeah. Matt, would you like to add something?
Sure. I mean, listen, at this point, Jimmy Butler and drama are pretty much synonymous. They go hand in hand. He's proven that he's an incredibly difficult player to work for or work with. Jimmy Butler works hard in the gym, apparently. And the only thing that Jimmy works harder at is telling people how hard he works in the gym. So people don't, if they can't match his intensity, that really rubs him the wrong way, I guess. So it's not surprising that he's had issues here in Philadelphia. I think they're 100% real. I'm a little less interested in this spot than Karen, but a little more interested than Julian. I could definitely see a situation where Butler is like scoring points and yelling at Brett Brown on the sideline, "You need me." I like the revenge narrative there against his own coaching staff. But as far as spots, I think that this is much more of an Embiid spot than a Butler spot or a Ben Simmons spot.
All right, well, we are at the midway point of the season, and MVP talk is churning, and the race feels pretty wide open right now. Who would you name your fantasy MVP of the season up to this point, Karin?
Oh, I'm going with James Edward Harden Jr. I'm picking the guy that's going to win MVP in the real life, so that's my guy so far right now.
Okay, Lamarca, you're also going with Harden. Can you explain to me a little more maybe why?
Yeah, I mean, when I did this segment a week ago or a week and a half ago for the Sweaties, I gave it to Paul George. But since then, James Harden has just taken on a completely different level of playing. He's good for a usage rate somewhere around 45% on most nights, which is ridiculous. He's playing close to 40 minutes a game. He is doing literally everything for the Houston Rockets right now. And that's great from a fantasy perspective, but it's also translating into his team winning a lot of basketball games. So it's hard to knock the way that he's playing when it's giving them positive results on the court. So I'm fully expecting him to keep, trying to put the team on his back every single night that he takes the floor.
Who are you going with, Jules?
Well, the wins and losses certainly don't matter because this is the fantasy MVP, and I am holding Harden's first, whatever you want to call it, first quarter or first 10 to 12 games of the season against him. And I'm going with Anthony Davis here because I think he's been more consistent for the entire first half of the season from a fantasy perspective. Yes, he's had his usual visits to the locker room that seem to get fantasy owners nervous, but he's never really let us down big with that yet. He always seems to come back and have a huge game. So I don't think that Harden's on an amazing run. He's definitely playing the best right now. But for the whole first half, it's got to be Anthony Davis because I don't think Harden's done something that separates him from Anthony Davis for the whole first half. Anthony Davis, 34 points, 26 rebounds against the Nets just a week ago. 48 points and 17 boards against the Mavericks back on December 28th. He has tons of those type of games in his game log, and he's been doing it for the whole half.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll play some pick and roll with you coming up. Yeah, right after some over-under with the NFL guys.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We're in the thick of the MLB offseason, and a couple of the game's biggest stars remain unsigned, but that could be changing here in short order. Obviously, we're talking about Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, and both of them have garnered interest from the Philadelphia Phillies. According to USA Today, a Phillies contingent is set to meet with Harper this weekend in his hometown of Las Vegas, fitting as his new contract will be like hitting the jackpot. It will be Phillies' first meeting with Harper, but second with his agent in Scott Forrest. And as things stand right now, however, there is no official offer on the table for Harper. As for Machado, the Phillies remain interested in his services and reportedly expect to make him a second offer this week on top of their preliminary offer. The Yankees and White Sox also remain in the mix for the slugger. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not both? Let's get crazy, Philly. Well, Philly's managing partner John Middleton did say the team was open to spending, quote, stupid money this winter, but bringing in 2 mega contracts like that may be even too rich for their blood.
Welcome back to The Sweat, folks. We're joined by DK Live, Steve Buchanan, Pierce Dietrich, and Jeff Ulrich. Now, before we jump into over-under, we have to get your take on the latest coaching news. So the Cardinals have announced that they've hired former Texas Tech coach Kliff Kingsbury.
Very handsome hire by them. And just before the show, how about this? Adam Schefter reporting the Bucs are finalizing a deal to make Bruce Arians their next head coach. The former Cardinals head coach will now be the, Bucs next head coach.
Interesting.
Indeed.
So, Steve, which hire do you think is a better fit?
I like Kliff going to the Cardinals. One of the things that they really need to improve on is they need to get an offense going. We saw how poor their offense was last season, so it feels like the perfect guy to get it in there. I mean, one of the first questions they should have asked is, hey, we have this guy, David Johnson. You think you can do anything with him because he did nothing last year? So, obviously we want to see if they can get a defensive coordinator too, because they'll definitely need one with him at the helm. But I think Kliff's a good fit there. And as long as Bruce is out of the broadcast booth, that's okay in my book too.
Pierce, what do you think?
I think head coach is overrated. All you got to do is just not screw up, as we've seen. I mean, Jeff's going to sit here and tell us that Jason Garrett's probably the worst thing that the Cowboys have going for them. That's really what you do as NFL coach, is not screw up. And at least Arians has experience in an NFL locker room. People are going to respect him. I don't know if Kingsbury is going to be afforded that luxury.
Jeff?
Oh, I'm Pierce. I need to get respect. I got to run around the sidelines and yell at my kickers and stuff when they come off the side. Give me a break. Bruce Arians is a retread. Where was Arizona? Where did he leave Arizona?
2 years ago,
Steve Wilkes. Bruce Arians left the cupboard bare there too. To give me Kliff Kingsbury, give me anything except a retread who's already been there, done that. Everyone's going to point to his poor college record, Kingsbury. Well, his offense was top 5 3 out of the 5 years there. He basically created Patrick Mahomes. I'm not giving him all the credit for Patrick Mahomes, but you got to give him some of it. He also developed a couple other QBs. Davis Webb was a really good college QB. I'm really excited to see what he does with Josh Rosen. If it works or not, at least the Cardinals are taking a shot. I'd be very happy if I was a Cardinals fan right now.
Yeah, had Baker Mayfield there too as a walk-on his first year at Texas Tech.
That
so
didn't
interesting
really...
stuff there, all the connections.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've taken care of today's hot gossip, let's get to NFL over-under. You got the divisional round beginning Sunday afternoon with the Colts and Chiefs throwing down. Both teams are averaging more than 27 points per game this season. Pierce, do you expect this one to go over or under, if my math is correct, 56.5?
Yeah, that's a lot of points, but I'm gonna go with the over. You got two really high-powered offenses here. 52.5 is where it opened. It's already up to 56.5. It's going to keep going up. So if you want the over, you better get in now, because I don't think it's going to stop. And just going to lean towards the offenses putting up the points. The Chiefs 10 times this season went towards the over. I think the Colts, third road game, they're going to be a little bit worn out. I expect points to be on the board.
Jeff, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the over here. I think this is a repeat of the Rams-Chiefs game. You might see something like that, similar to it, where, I don't care if this gets up to 60 points. I'd still take the over. I just think these two offenses are too efficient, and I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to stop the Colts, which means they're just going to have to keep their pedal to the floor. So the over has gone. The Chiefs games, 4 of the last 6 have gone over 56 points, just for a little point of reference there.
Steve, you also expecting points galore?
I mean, yeah, but honestly, I think this game realistically has a chance to go under. I mean, when you look at the numbers, look, Arrowhead Stadium averaging over 50 points per game. You combine what both these teams have done on the season, averages out to about 62 points for a game here. But honestly, the Colts really aren't stiffs when it comes to defense. They've honestly been one of the best defenses against the pass. When you look at some of their numbers, they're pretty in line with what the Ravens did against the pass this season, too. We always harp about how great the Ravens defense was against the pass. So, I mean, do I think that they're going to go and shut down the Chiefs? Absolutely not. But like Pierce said, 56.5 points, it's a lot of points to come up with. So, it's going to be damn close. I'll tell you that. It's not going to be like a 27-14 game or anything like that. But I think it has a chance to go under.
I did hear you were actually really good at math, Emerson. Not sure if you told me
Phenomenal.
that. Yeah.
A little slow, but phenomenal.
So next up, we have the Cowboys and Rams. Here are the deets. LA has the second best offense in the league. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are barely averaging more than 20 points per game. So taking all of this into account, Jeff, is this one going over or under 49 points?
Yeah, I'll take the under here. I think there's a slight risk that the Rams maybe just get some late pick sixes and drive this to the over. But look, Dallas they don't really rush. I mean, even when they're behind, they don't really do a good hurry up offense. And then you have the Rams, who are efficient, but they'll play the pace of their opponent at times too. I just don't think Dallas is going to be able to do enough offensively in this game. Dak, I mentioned his QBR rating on the road last week. I think the Rams win this pretty comfortably, and I just don't think this quite gets to 50 points.
Steve, over or under 49 points?
Yeah, this one feels a little bit high right now, too, as well. I mean, we always like to go back to that game with the Rams and the Chiefs, but since that game, Jared Goff really hasn't done anything to impress anyone. He scored 40 DK fantasy points in that game against the Chiefs, and then since 5 games after that, 14.2 DK fantasy points and an average of 228 passing yards. And look, the Cowboys defense, they're kind of like the Colts. They're not total pushovers here, and against opposing quarterbacks, they've done really well in this spot. And, if you've been taking the over-under on these teams, you've pretty much been disappointed all season long. Rams 8-9 on the year, Cowboys 7-8-1. So these aren't teams that notoriously hit the over on these games. So I think 49 is still a little bit too high right now. If it comes down a couple points, I'll probably start to like that there. But 49 just feels like just a tad bit too high.
Pierce, we got 2 unders. Are you going to agree or are you going to go over here?
Over.
Let's make it a third. It's going to be an under for me. The Rams' weakness is the run, and the Cowboys like to run the ball. They're going to pound it on the ground, suck the air out of the ball. And even like Jeff said, even when the Cowboys get down, they'll just continue to run the ball, or they'll throw short yardage passes. The clock will tick away. There's no way that they're going to get near this over. Cowboys as road dogs this year, 2 times they went over, but 5 times the game went as the under. I think the Rams aren't really going to try to run it up. They'll be happy with the win, and the Cowboys will be happy running the clock down and just watching the game slip away.
All righty, guys. Early Sunday, we're going to have the Chargers and Patriots. LA's offense couldn't really muster much besides field goals last week against the Ravens. Steven, do you expect them to turn it on against your hometown New England squad? Meaning we'll see over 45.5 points here?
Yeah, I think this has an excellent shot of going over here. I mean, both their teams are really playing to their strengths in this matchup. I mean, the Pats have been undefeated at Foxborough. Chargers are technically 8-1 on the road, but when they really lost that game, it was against the Rams in LA. So I don't know, do you really want to call that a road game? Otherwise, they were undefeated. When they have to go on a plane and, fly away, that's when they've been undefeated on the year so far. And look, games at Gillette, they're averaging just under 50 points per game this season, and both these defenses really don't scare you, and they have guys on each side that can really play into their weaknesses. I mean, the Chargers' best receiver is Keenan Allen, who mostly operates out of the slot. I mean, I think I've said it so many times how poor the Pats are against slot receivers. And then the Chargers are really bad against passing down backs, and James White seems to be getting more involved in that offense once again since we've seen the last of Josh Gordon. So I feel like there's too many factors in this game where each team can really play into the other's weakness. So just seems too low of a total for me right now.
We have some breaking news, Jessie.
Real quick,
Oh boy, here we go.
Steve, we're hearing that there is the possibility of a blizzard. Snow is imminent. What say you about this weather?
I'm not even responding.
All right.
I have nothing, okay? Just go on.
Jeff.
Pierce has to say.
Pierce.
Oh, you want me to go to Pierce? I can go to Pierce. Pierce, what do you think, dude?
That was so planned, too. That was awful. You guys, sat there and thought about
Actually,
we just did it right now. And I
just looked up the forecast real quick. I'm dead serious.
He was too scared to do it, so he was like, you do it.
That is true. I said
so I did it. Because I'm not scared of anything.
All right, Pierce, go ahead, dude. What do you think, man?
I have no idea what's going on right now. But
that's fine. Neither does 99% of people watching.
There is really snow in the forecast, at least in North Carolina. I don't know what's going up there, but if it is going to snow, then I would say go with the under. I like the under anyway. The Patriots, they averaged 32 points a playoff game, the last 10 games in the playoffs. And that's pretty good, but they've gone under a lot this year. As home favorites, only 2 times have they gone over the total, 6 times they've gone under. Since 2016, in terms of going over or under, they have the 6th most unders. So Vegas likes to set the line pretty high on these guys. So They score points, but they know what they're doing. I'm going to go with the under.
Just a heads up for everyone at home. The joke is typically Steve absolutely hates talking about the weather.
Yeah.
We did it a lot during our Sunday NFL shows throughout the season.
Stupid.
Jeff loves bringing it up. So, Jeff, what do you think about this game?
I mean, I would have brought it up if you guys hadn't. So
Yeah,
I'm going to agree with Pierce here. I like the under, too. I think what people are missing here is the Patriots have morphed into a bit of a power run team. Early in the season, teams were passing a lot against them. They've slowed things down, and over their last 3 or 4 games, quarterbacks are just not throwing much against them because the Patriots are running more. And I think you're going to see that here. I think you're going to see a very similar game to what the Chargers and Ravens played, albeit with different offenses. Obviously, Tom Brady's not going to be out there running it 17 times a game or something, but I think it's going to work out similar. And I think a 23-20 type of game is very, very likely here. So I do like the under here, even at just 45.5.
And the finale of the divisional round will feature the Eagles and Saints. The Eagles, 16 points was the fewest of any team that advanced last week. And the Saints offense, once seemingly unstoppable, has looked unreliable over the last few weeks of the regular season. So, Pierce, do you trust these teams to combine for 50.5 points on Sunday?
I don't. And I have a breaking news report, 70 degrees. Relative humidity inside the dome, so we don't have to really worry about that for the Saints game.
Thank God.
I think it's going to go on to the Saints are going to come out rusty. They haven't played in a couple weeks. They didn't play the last week. I see a lot of field goals in this game. The Eagles, probably the best red zone defense in NFL. They've allowed the least amount of points. Field goals are not going to get you to the cover.
Jeff, what do you think?
I like how Pierce thinks the Saints are going to be rusty, and then like the Chiefs and the Pats are going to be rested because of a bye week. Anyways, whatever.
They didn't play anybody week 17. They rested everybody. That always goes against you.
I actually agree with them here. I feel this is the one game I really don't have a great handle on. I feel like it could go either way, but I'm going to say the under here too. I just feel like these two defenses are pretty good. I mean, especially the Saints and the Eagles. Obviously, their secondary sucks, but they've improved of late. And I think it's just more likely that you see a little bit of a less low-key offensive game than a big Saints explosion game where Nick Foles is in huge catch-up mode. So I think you see a little bit closer game than people think, and I think it is going to go under.
Steve I Roll Buchanan.
That's me, baby. I mean, I don't see how this game doesn't go over here. I mean, Philly is all excited because they shut out the Redskins in the last week of the season, and then they held the Bears to 15 points. Look, Allen Robinson absolutely trumped you guys, and if it wasn't for one missed kick, I mean, they would have won that game. I mean, I don't know how to break it to you guys, but if the Saints are one of the best offenses in the league, and they wrecked you for 48 points already this season. I mean, sure, the Saints are great defensively, and the Eagles can still put up some points, I guess. But, I mean, there's so many areas that the Saints can exploit this Eagles defense that I don't see how this is just not a back-and-forth game the whole entire time here. I mean, this honestly has to be my favorite game on the slate to put up fantasy points, and it should be everybody else's because there's just two offenses here. You know, Foles is connected with Jeffrey a lot, the Breeze-Thomas connection. I mean, there's just too many things here that can go to get the points here on this board. So I definitely love the over on this one.
All right, dudes, thank you. Before we break, we have a very exciting event to tell you about.
Ooh, we love exciting events.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, if you're in the tri-state area, this January 11th through the 13th, DraftKings will be hosting its first ever sports betting national championship event. Where
they're going to be crowning the first ever DraftKings sports betting national champion in Jersey City, New Jersey. That means you could have the chance to compete for the grand prize of $100.
No, $1 million.
$1 million.
So for more information, head on over to DraftKings.com.
But do it after this show because we've got our NHL expert joining us right after these messages from Pat Mayo.
Playing Jordan Spieth?
Okay, so I'll spend like just a few seconds on Jordan Spieth. Yes, and I think this is you really have to buy into this, like, or be out on it. So, like, Jordan Spieth's going to win again, right? He's not going to go another year without winning. I just don't imagine that ever happening. So you have to decide whether you are going to kind of ride the wave and just hang on to him and be there for the win, or if you're going to wait and see what happens first. If you wait and see what happens, you are going to miss the win. I think missing for a couple of weeks, but having him at like 10% owned when he actually does win a golf tournament is probably more valuable than missing out on the times that or fading him in the times that he whiffed. So I will just kind of long-term for the season be on him more than the industry is, just because I I want to be early rather than late.
It's a lot like the Rory situation from last year, that when he came over and started to play on the PGA Tour, it was kind of like, Rory's one of the best players in the world. No one is using him at any of these tournaments because he's playing so poorly, that just put him in your lineups every week, allocate a certain percentage of your lineups, maybe it's 25%, keep playing Rory, because when he hits, he's going to lead the field in DraftKings scoring by such a ridiculous margin that's not even going to be close. And then everyone cashed in at Bay Hill when he was like 6% owned.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of these situations where you have to decide if you can handle it. And with what we're seeing right now, early projections on Spieth this week and then in future weeks, you probably don't need to allocate that much to be overweight on him. Like you said, 25% this week. If he's only 10%, like you're in a really good spot if he finds it and you haven't punted all your lineups to Spieth if he ends up just missing another cut.
I don't love him for this particular course. I think that I'm going to jump back on him once we get back to the mainland, and maybe he'll end up playing Pebble Beach, a place where he's had success in the past. I know he's won in Hawaii before, but it was really just I don't like what he does off the tee. And I know it's minimized here because you can miss the fairway no problem and continue to actually – people gain more strokes hitting from the rough at this course than they do from the fairway. So it's not that big of a deal. But he's actually one of the few players in the field who – he tanked his tournament here last year by making a quadruple bogey in the first round because he shanked it out of bounds. And he's still losing so many strokes off the tee, even though the irons have come back, even though the putting has come back. And we saw that even through the swing season. He was not successful in the swing season because he was dropping like 4 strokes per tournament off the tee. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And this is where I love this time of year. And we start to get into a lot of narratives or a lot of guessing games, which I think is always fun because some of these guys we haven't seen in a while, right? Now we have seen Spieth during the swing season, but he played 2 events since September or something like that. So we haven't seen a whole lot of him. We've seen him play a few rounds, and now we're trying to make guesses at what he's doing. But if you just kind of look a little bit deeper, Spieth is a lot like Bryson, where this guy has been absolutely grinding like every day in the simulator or wherever he's at to get his game right. I think him missing the Tournament of Champions this year is kind of a big slap in the face. And I don't usually get into the narrative stuff. I usually kind of stay away from it. But he's one of these guys that is just going to grind for you every single hole. So I'm always willing to fire him up.
All right, we've got good news and better news. Which one you want?
The good news.
Well, we are shifting gears to hockey right now.
So what's the better news?
We have Chris Wasel of Awesemo.com here to help us sort through some of the salaries for tonight. An 11-game slate, Coffield.
And Steven Stamkos is in action and will cost you $7,500 against the Blue Jackets. And they're starting Sergei Bobrovsky, who's allowed at least 3 goals in his last 4 games. So does the matchup make Stamkos worth the money tonight, Chris?
Yes, it does. And for the simple reason is that, look, Columbus has been an up-and-down team all year. Regardless of what you may look at recent numbers, just as Sergei Bobrovsky looked like he was getting out of the drink, he got pulled right back into this sort of moray, if you will, where he just gives up these goals at randomly bad times, and usually to good players like, you guessed it, Steven Stamkos. Columbus allows about 3.2 goals a game at home. Their penalty kill is okay, but look, Tampa Bay is coming off their worst game of the season against San Jose. They're not going to be a happy team, and Stamkos wasn't all that happy after the end of San Jose's game.
All right.
It was a rough one for him.
Oh, yeah.
Same position, different player, more expensive. Nate McKinnon has been on a tear, like 20 points in his last 14 games kind of tear. So, Chris, how much do you like his price of 7.9 against the Jets?
It's as if Nathan McKinnon never cooled off, really. Or we could say that he's a little less than ultra white hot right now. Basically, you have to like the price. The price is solid. He's going up against the Winnipeg team. Again, this is a team that will give up some goals. They keep riding Connor Hellebuck, which is the surprise of many. And look, Winnipeg is without one of their best bruising defensemen in Dustin Byfuglien. So that means guys like Josh Morrissey are going to have to play 25-plus minutes a night. And look, that top line is back together and will tax Winnipeg heavily tonight.
All right, Alex Ovechkin's been relatively cold lately. Just 1 goal in his last 9 games. So, Chris, is he overpriced tonight at $8K against the Flyers?
Normally, you would absolutely have to say, yes, he's overpriced. But this is Alex Ovechkin, and Ovechkin can occasionally go on these slumps. He's done it before a few years ago. He had 3 goals in about 25 games and then went off and had 30 goals in the next 40 games. That's the kind of player Ovechkin is. And he's facing a Flyers team tonight that got absolutely steamrolled by a St. Louis team that was not rested and still managed to outshoot them, by double digits on the road in Philly. This is a tough game to gauge, but obviously if you're looking at a relatively safe play, the cash one is definitely Alex Ovechkin.
All right, well, let's stick with that game. Phoenix Copley will start in net for Washington. He's $8,200, which is his most expensive price tag dating back to the start of the season against this struggling Flyers team, as you just mentioned. So what makes you think he's a good play for that much cash, or maybe you don't, Chris?
Here's the problem. For when you're looking at cash plays in particular, you're just looking for the highest chance of a win, as opposed to tournament. Everybody knows this. You're looking for shot volume. You may get a little of both in this game, unfortunately, because no one has any clue how Philadelphia is going to come out. They look completely resigned to their fate last night. Who knows? Tonight they may come out and surprise everybody. The problem is the Flyers have a way of doing this even during long losing streaks, where out of nowhere they pop a performance. They did it several weeks ago against Carolina, where almost the money swung heavily in Carolina's favor, and then all of a sudden Philly came out and won 3-1. We're not saying that's going to happen here, but just be a little aware that there are other better options than Phoenix Copley at over $8,000.
Now, before we let you go, Chris, how about your slate-approved pick for tonight?
Oh, God. You know what? You almost have to go with this just because it's been so tried and true. It is without a doubt Nikita Kucherov. Yes, Kucherov was held off the score sheet against San Jose. He was a -4 on top of it. He barely did anything offensively. But it's Nikita Kucherov. You have to go up against a team that, weak penalty kill, weak at times defensively, and you just roll with it like you have for the past several weeks.
Love it, man. Thanks for hopping on with us, Chris. We really appreciate it. And we're going to take a trip back to the hardwood, play some NBA pick and roll after this.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. No one is taking the firing of Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota harder than Derrick Rose. The point guard reacted to the firing of his head coach on Monday and was noticeably distraught, while also giving some colorful remarks he later had to apologize for. No surprise that Rose is upset at Tibbs' departure, as he's not only an MVP and 3-time All-Star under him in Chicago, but he also was the coach who he credits for resurrecting his career with the T-Wolves this year. So far, Rose has been sensational as the sixth man, averaging nearly 19 points and 5 assists per game this year. Now that Tibbs is gone, he's playing under the late Flip Saunders' son Ryan. There does seem to be a fair question about whether or not Rose's resurgence will continue. We do know that it will at least be stalled. He's set to miss his 6th straight game on Tuesday against the Thunder as he continues to recover from an ankle injury. He is expected to be back on Friday when the Timberwolves tip off against the Mavs. In that game, let's expect that Rose simply slides back into his normal role, and then we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, Sully. As promised, the sweat has returned. So have we. So have these guys. It's our NBA panel. I was thinking like NFL for whatever reason. They can talk that too, but we're going to stick with basketball. So NBA panel, DK Live's Julian Edlow, Action Matt LaMarca of the Action Network, Karin Phillips of the New York Daily News.
Pick and roll is its name. Choosing between some of the top options at each position is the game. Russell Westbrook is the highest priced player on the slate. He's definitely been going off lately.
Yes, he has.
I think everybody can agree on that. More than 53 fantasy points in his last 4 games. He'll run you 11-2 against the Timberwolves, or you could save more than $1,000 and take Steph Curry for $10K against the Knicks. So who's your guy, Julian?
Yeah, I don't care about saving that $1,000 when we're going all the way up here for these studs. You can't trust these Warriors studs against the Knicks. This could easily turn into a blowout, and these guys don't have to see the floor in the fourth quarter. I believe the current point spread is at 16.5. So even with the Warriors not necessarily playing their best this season, I don't think you can go there. So it's kind of Westbrook by default, but 3 triple-doubles in his last 4 games for more than 60 DraftKings points. He did score 56.75 DraftKings points against the Timberwolves earlier this season. And OKC's been playing the fastest pace in the NBA since December 1st, so there's a lot of upside with Westbrook, so it's easy to go with him.
Karin, are you trying to save $1,200 and go with Curry, or do you agree you got to pay up for Westbrook?
Of course I'm trying to save money. I'm a grown man that lives by a budget.
Oh, wow.
Darn right I am. Look, he made a great point. Like, it's the Knicks. I don't feel like Emmanuel Moody is going to be a Steph Curry stopper tonight. But at some point, the way this team has been playing, I've just been waiting for Steve Kerr and the rest of that locker room to realize that the identity of this team is based upon Steph Curry and Draymond Green and not Kevin Durant. And at some point, Steph is going to go on one of those runs and look like the MVP candidate he was in the past. So I'm taking him mainly because I can save some money and just because Russ has been on this hot streak of late. But before that, he was really, really lukewarm. So in the name of keeping $1,200 in my pocket, give me Steph Curry.
LaMarca, are you paying up or are you saving the cash?
If I could really put the $1,200 in my pocket, I would do that.
I was just going to say, I know we don't get this money.
Listen. Anything that
the way that you get the money in your pocket is by playing the better fantasy player.
Hey. I live on a budget, okay, guys?
He lives on a budget. Let him live.
Dude, seriously, Julian, why do you have to be so mean?
I don't know.
LaMarca.
Let
LaMarca I'll break the tie. I'm going with Russell Westbrook. The one thing that I'm looking at that is encouraging is that his usage rate has come up pretty substantially over his past 7 games. If you look at what he was doing earlier in the season, Karen's dead on. He was looking to be more of a distributor. His fantasy production was down. He was on pace for the 3rd lowest usage rate of his career. But recently, over his last 7 games, usage rate over 34%. That would be 2nd in the league behind just James Harden this season. And the fantasy points have followed. So if he's going to keep playing that way, we know that this guy is capable of putting up huge totals. And I do worry about Curry playing, roughly 3 quarters tonight. It's the largest point spread we've seen all season against the Knicks. This game could be over very, very quickly.
Kawhi Leonard bouncing back from an off night in his old stomping grounds of San Antonio with a 57 fantasy point performance against the Bucks. That was on Saturday, so he's 9-6 facing the Hawks tonight. But then there's Paul George, who's the most expensive forward on the slate at $10,300 in Minnesota. Take your pick, Karin.
Come on now.
No, take it.
We talked about this budgeting, and me and my accountant have a great relationship. I'm taking the guy who is cheaper every time, especially when we get to the top level studs, as my colleague just said. Look, give me Kawhi with this. Like, they're playing the Hawks tonight. Like, go out there, Kawhi, get your numbers, get your buckets, get your assists, get your rebounds, and then enjoy the rest of the night, and then save me some money that we can spend somewhere else on a guy like Russell Westbrook. See? That's how you financially plan.
Okay. Kawhi's kind of got a point here, Julian.
Well, Kawhi didn't make any point.
Or Karin.
I mean, if we're going to save money every time, we might as well just fill our lineup out with $3,000 players, minimum guys. There, now we save a bunch of money. It's Paul George. Like, the Toronto's going to blow out the Hawks at home. Kawhi Leonard is playing with Kyle Lowry. They haven't been on the floor much together lately. They're going to start sharing usage for the first time in a while. There's a good chance Kawhi and Kyle Lowry don't need to see the floor in the 4th quarter. I believe the spread's around 15 points in this game. Toronto likes to rest their studs as much as possible. They have a very deep bench that they can lean on in this game. On the flip side, you can play Paul George whether you want to use him as your stud for OKC or try and stack him with Russell Westbrook, given the pace that OKC's been playing at lately. But Paul George, he's a little expensive, yes, but he scored 54 DraftKings points against Minnesota earlier this season. That would be exceeding value. You look through that game log, he's had a lot of huge games recently. Matt just mentioned he had him as of a couple weeks ago or a week ago as his fantasy MVP this season. So give me Paul George.
Matt, 2 stud muffins here. Which one are you going to roster?
I'm going to take Kawhi Leonard with the caveat that this is only if Dennis Schroeder plays. I think this is one of the biggest injuries I'm monitoring right now. If Schroeder is out, I think Paul George and Russell Westbrook become even better plays than they already are, and you can definitely play them together. They both went for over 60 DK points the first game that Schroeder missed this season. So outside of that, I think that the way Westbrook is starting to play is going to have a negative impact on George here. We saw it in his last game. He failed to crack 40 DK points. If Westbrook is going to become, the usage monster that he's been in the past, I think it's hard to play him and George together. So I don't love the spot for Kawhi either, but it is a great matchup against Atlanta. You just need to hope that they keep that game close. And Julian mentioned the deep bench for Toronto. They are super deep. Not going to have Danny Green tonight for rest purposes, so that does make them just a tiny bit shallower than usual. But I think that Leonard, just all things considered, is the better play as it stands right now.
Guys, Joel Embiid has been a monster, scoring at least 61 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's 11K tonight against the Wizards. You could also look at Nikola Jokic, who's really hot right now, too, averaging 57 fantasy points in his last 10 games. He's $1,200 less than Embiid. So who's the better center tonight, LaMarca?
I love Joel Embiid. He's my favorite play on this slate. I want all the Embiid against the Washington Wizards. They have been the worst team in the league this season on the glass, and their numbers have only been worse with Dwight Howard out of the lineup. Embiid only played 22 minutes against them, their first meeting this season, still managed to rip down 15 rebounds. I think he's going to have a monster game. Both of these teams are top 8 in pace this season, so I'm expecting a lot of possessions. And Embiid's just going to do what he does, which is get buckets, get rebounds, and probably talk some smack too.
Now, Karin, I'm guessing you're going with Jokic because he's less expensive.
That's one of the reasons.
Wow.
But the other reason is that I picked Jimmy Butler earlier to go off, so then that means that I can't pick Joel Embiid here. So that's why I'm going with the Joker here, but I like going with the Joker anytime he's available in any of these slots, just because he fills up so many different categories in your stat sheet. But he brought up an interesting point about how Embiid put up such big numbers in low minutes. That was kind of my argument about Steph and Kawhi. Even though they might not play a lot tonight, those are guys who can get their buckets and their rebounds and assists in spurts. So they don't have to play big minutes in order for them to pay off for you. But definitely I'm going with the Joker here.
Julian, who's your guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jokic is a very intriguing tournament play. Just look at that game log. He's averaging 57 DraftKings points over his last 6 games. He had 50 in just 28 minutes in Houston last night, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not interested in him. That back-to-back Houston to Miami, that's a tough spot. Embiid, for a lot of the reasons that Matt mentioned, is one of my top plays on this slate. He had 42 DraftKings points in that game where he played whatever it was, barely 22 minutes against Washington. They just don't have a body to put on him. Thomas Bryant has emerged a little bit for them, but that's not a guy that's going to shut down Joel Embiid. So Washington's been playing really well, actually, since John Wall went down about 5 games ago and was ruled out for the season. So I think this can be a close competitive game with really high pace, and Embiid's going to be the guy for Philly that has the best matchup on the floor to get a lot of those buckets for the Sixers.
All right, guys, the Kings and Suns go at it tonight. We will discuss Showdown Picks with you after our final NFL chat of the night. Chaser Fade is next.
Hey, I'm Tara Lenazak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Packers quickly snagged Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur as Mike McCarthy's successor in Green Bay, leaving one less open head coaching position remaining in the NFL. Meanwhile, McCarthy's new job announcement doesn't seem to be coming anytime soon. The former Packers coach is reportedly a front-runner for the spot in Cleveland, but the Browns don't seem as eager to fill their opening as the Packers. McCarthy was expected to meet with the Browns this week, but now, according to an ESPN report, plans to conduct a formal interview with a prospective head coach have been put on hold while other candidates are interviewed. When McCarthy was fired from Green Bay on December 2nd after 13 seasons, he immediately became one of the most desired names to enter the free agent coaching pool. McCarthy guided the Packers to a Super Bowl championship in 2010 and 3 other trips to the NFC championship games. We'll see if this is just due diligence by the Browns or if they have someone else in mind. For McCarthy, he is still in play for the Jets job, so the Browns better not wait too long if they really want a guy with a championship pedigree to lead their team next season.
Welcome back to DK Live. Steve Buchanan and Pierce Dietrich. Jeff looks a little different, and that's because he's been replaced by Reed Fowler for our last NFL segment. Good old Chase or Fade.
You're so handsome there, little Jeff. So will the following players meet these projections this weekend? Let's begin. Patrick Mahomes was far and away the best fantasy player this season in terms of putting up the points. Had 7 games with more than 30 points, but he hasn't hit that mark since week 13. So chase or fade, Reed, since you're new here, that Mahomes has more than 30 points this weekend against the Colts. Oh, need your mic. Need your mic. Need your mic. I need it. Turn it on. No. There. Go to someone else, they say. Steve.
Can't hear you
can't hear you.
Pierce.
Pierce. Anything. Pierce. That's still Steve.
Okay, I'm taking
the we got your audio. Oh.
I did it myself. I'm sorry. Anybody wants to be mad at me? I did it myself. I had to take control.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm going to fade this one. I mean, I alluded to it earlier that the Colts have their strengths against the pass, and, that's half the reason why I'm going to fade it here. I mean, the Colts allowed the second least receiving yards in the league at just 124. Only the Bills allowed less throughout the entire league here. I mean, you think about that. Like I said earlier, we harp about how good the Ravens defense was against the pass, but the Colts were better in this area. But to be fair, if there's anybody that can probably break that mold, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. This is somebody who tosses an average of 3 touchdowns per game at this point. So I don't really love the matchup for, say, like Tyreek Hill, whatever, but I do like the matchup for Mahomes and Kelsey. That's the matchup I think you really want to look at this week. But 30 points is a lot of fantasy points to accumulate. I think it'll be in the high 20s, but over 30, that's a bit too high for me.
Reed, chase your fade. Mahomes has more than 30 points this weekend against the Colts. Oh, my Lord.
He's still out.
Hey, Pierce, can we hear you?
Chase.
Yeah.
5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. Those are Tecmo numbers. He's going to be zigzagging up and down the field, piling up the stats. Why would you bail out now? I know he hasn't been as hot, but those numbers are ridiculous. You got to play.
I don't know whether we should go back to Reed or not.
Let's just bring Jeff back.
Reed?
That is Jeff.
Oh!
Yeah! Go ahead, dude.
Let's blame Tom Rigier here. I'm going to put his name on this because he didn't.
Goodness.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
You're going to get fired.
Anyway.
Nice knowing you, Reed.
I agree. Look, I agree with these guys. Like Patrick Mahomes, if there's one guy to do it, you never want to say that someone's going to go over 30 DK fantasy points, but obviously he's the one there. The Colts, not a good matchup. Third, teams that are still around, right? They have the third worst in terms of DK fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So I agree with these guys.
All right. Well, here's a guy
great content.
Also on fire. Marlon Mack's touchdown streak continued last week, extending it to 5 straight games. He's also had at least 22 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. So, Steven, chase or fade that Mack keeps the hot streak alive and has more than 20 fantasy points against the Chiefs.
I mean, Mack was such a difference maker in fantasy lineups last week. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I wasn't on him at all because of his salary and the matchup. But if you paid up for him, baby, you were doing in a pretty spot there last week. Now he gets a much more generous matchup and a $200 discount from last week. I mean, the Chiefs were among the most generous team to opposing running backs, allowing an average of 113 rushing yards, 29.4 DK fantasy points per game. The Colts had absolutely zero interest in using Hines, which, that was awesome, or Wilkins. I mean, they both had no targets. Wilkins had 2 carries in that game. I mean, it just absolutely nothing for him. Mack was the guy there. I don't see how they would deviate from that this week in a matchup that plays in Mack's favor so much more. So, yeah, Mack absolutely has to be in lineups this week.
Pierce, does he keep the hot streak alive?
I'm going to fade this. And it worries me, though, because Mack's playing really well. He's a completely different player. He's getting yards. He's not just a touchdown-dependent play. The Colts are at a whole nother level right here. But the thing that worries me with this game is if it turns into shootout mode, we know that Mack doesn't really feature much in the passing game. And I know Kansas City, they've given up a lot of points. And as Steve mentioned, they've given up a lot of touchdowns to running backs, and that bodes well for Mack. But this goes shootout, and we go into the air, Mack's not going to hit 20 points.
And what do you think about this one, Reed? We think you can talk.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah, like to Steve's point, too, I'm going to just take that a little bit further because I agree with him. The Chiefs at home over the last 5 games are giving up 144, 145 yards to opposing running backs. So even if they don't pass or even if this does get into a shootout, 81% of the snaps Max saw, you only saw about 3 targets. So to Pierce's point, you do get kind of scared. But Nyheim Hines is just not being utilized, and they're not really utilizing him that much at this point in the season. You just love this matchup. Kansas City is always a cake matchup for opposing running backs. And Kansas City, they only really give up about 7 targets per game. It's about 12th to 15th in the league. So not too much. And so I don't see the other running backs in that Colts stable really doing anything much. So I'm with Steve here. Give me back at that discounted price.
Michael Thomas is the most expensive receiver this week, $7,900. Now, when he faced the Eagles in Week 11, we were looking at 4 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Pretty good. Reed, chase or fade, Thomas has a better game this weekend than he did earlier in the season.
Yeah, I'm chasing this. Philadelphia, we talk about it quite a bit. Like, their defense did look a little bit better, but that really is because of that defensive line in Philadelphia. They're playing a lot better than they did at the beginning, putting pressure on the quarterback. I believe they're 6th in adjusted line yards. So this Philadelphia defense is still, especially that secondary, not good. And now you talk about that Mike Thomas, who at home is about an 85% catch rate. Philadelphia gives up 90 yards and about 9 receptions to wide receiver ones. And Michael Thomas is that guy. He's seen 10 targets at home per game. Yeah, I'm all over Mike Thomas.
Where are you going on this, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, rostering Michael Thomas is absolutely maddening. I mean, he literally can go out there any given game and grab 8 passes for 120 yards or, maybe 3 passes for 30 yards. But, like Reed said, the Phillies defense has just been so bad to opposing wide receiver ones. And whenever I talk bad about the Philly defense, all of a sudden I start getting all these hateful comments. But that's fine. I don't care. It's just the truth.
People love you, Steve. People absolutely love you.
Talk about Wasel Douglas, who he's going to see in coverage. I mean, this guy's averaging, 70% catch rate on all the targets his way, averaging 12.3 yards per reception. This is a big-time spot for Michael Thomas. This is absolutely a play you want to look at this week.
All right, Pierce. Chase or fade, Michael Thomas has a better game than he did in Week 11.
I'll chase it. Well, I'll take the 20 points on the 4th-game slate that it got you in a blowout. But you look last year in the playoffs, Drew Brees targeting 22 times for 15 receptions, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to lean on Michael Thomas in the playoffs. Have you looked at the other Saints receivers? Is he going to lean on Ted Ginn? No. Now, I know some people want to play Ted Ginn as their surprise receiver, and I get that. But Michael Thomas is going to get the targets. He's going to get the red zone targets as well.
Excellent work, you 3. You're free to go. We can't leave yet, though, because the most hotly anticipated segment of the show is up next. Showdown Picks in 2 minutes.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. It's taken a while for them to get there, but the 2-headed monster on San Jose's blue line is finally living up to the expectations. Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns are playing their best hockey this season and led the Sharks on an impressive climb up the Western Conference standings. Since December 1st, Karlsson and Burns have combined for 44 points in the Sharks' 18 games and are 1-2 in scoring among NHL defensemen. San Jose has also won 12 of those 18 contests. Karlsson especially has experienced a resurgence as of late after a disappointing start to his Sharks career. The former Norris Trophy winner extended his point streak to 13 games last night to set a franchise record. He also became the first NHL defenseman since Phil Housley in the 1992-93 season to record at least 1 assist in 13 straight games. San Jose's dynamic duo will be right back at it tonight as they host the Oilers in a DraftKings Showdown contest, and Karlsson and Burns are naturally the most expensive defensemen on the contest at $11,600 and $9,800 respectively, and it will be tough to fit them both in your lineup, but at this point, you may have no choice.
Alrighty, and just like that, it is the final block of the show, and time flies, obviously, when you're with your best friend. These guys, too. Julian Edlow, Matt LaMarca, Carm Phillips. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jessie.
Hey, missed you so much. And it's time for you 3 to make some NBA Showdown picks for this evening's contest between the Kings and Suns. If Devin Booker is out, that will make DeAndre Ayton the highest priced player in this one. So the showdown, so despite the high price tag, is he a must-play tonight, Julian?
I don't think he's a must play. I think he's a very good play. The value on the Phoenix side is obviously with Devin Booker out, we want to look at some of these perimeter players. So we talked about them earlier in the show. They're great values on the classic main slate. TJ Warren, D'Anthony Melton, Josh Jackson, who's going to step into that starting role. So I would say those three guys are more of must-play guys than DeAndre Ayton, but Ayton's obviously a great play, and with all this value, you can pretty easily fit him into your lineup against a Sacramento team that struggles against centers.
Well, Karin, I heard highest price, so let me guess where you're going on this one.
Look, y'all not going to make it seem like I'm cheap, okay? I'm just cost effective.
Okay.
As the writer columnist on this panel, I take words very carefully, and the word must is triggering for me here because I don't feel like, Ayton is the must guy here, but will I do it? Yes. While I still like TJ Warren, who I think would wind up having the best numbers out of everybody tonight, I guess if I must play someone, it will be, Ayton. But I just don't like that word choice. But because I love you guys, I'm going to go with must.
Okay, we'll work on that. Matt, who are you going with?
Yeah, he's as close to a must-play as there is on this slate, I think. If you look in our Fantasy Labs models, his ceiling projection as a captain is roughly 20 points higher than every other player's on the slate. So, when it's very easy to find value, I like the idea of locking Ayton in as captain. Like, I think that's a strong option.
All right, top price Kings, that would be Buddy Hield for $14,100, De'Aaron Fox, $13,800. They'll be out there without their teammate Marvin Bagley, who will be resting his knee this evening. So Hield or Fox, who's the better play, Matt?
I want to be like that GIF, and, why not both? Like, I like them both. I think I'll go with Buddy Hield. He's averaged over 40 DK points per game with Bagley and Iman Shumpert out of the lineup this season. And I like his ability to pile up points against a really bad defense. Fox is a great play, too. I want to have them both, but if I can only choose one, it's going to be Buddy.
Jules.
Yeah, I like Fox here. It's a really good game to target here against the Phoenix Suns. I know they've been a little better defensively this season, but again, no Devin Booker. The total in this game is approaching 230 projected points, and yet Sacramento is only a 3.5-point favorite. So this should be a battle until the end. And Fox has been really tremendous this year for Sacramento. He's on a little bit of a slow stretch over his last 4 games, but he did have 36 DraftKings points in 22 minutes against Orlando in his last game. The 6 games before that, he was really on a tear, scoring 40-plus in all 6 of those, maxing out at 58.75 DraftKings points against OKC. So I think Fox is just the better play here.
All right, Karin, break the tie for us.
I'm going Fox, too, for 3 reasons. One, he's a better player out of the two that I feel. But to go with number 2, 3, and 4, I added another one there. He's going to give you points because the ball is in your hand. He sets the table for everyone, and that's assists. And then with Marvin Bagley out, you lose one of your better rebounders, even though Bagley's been coming off the bench. And with their pace and their tempo and how they like to go up and down the floor, Fox getting the rebound and leading the break, his rebounds might go up a little bit too. So give me Fox all around. Besides the fact of him being more costly.
Ooh, cost effective. So, Karin, who are you putting in your captain spot? You're gonna have to pay up for whoever this is.
You guys so much. Trying to mess up my credit score. Going with DeAndre Ayton.
Okay, I'm really sorry.
See.
I'm sorry we had to make you do that.
So that's
really
$15,300 in your captain spot. You do get 1.5 times the points, though.
Yeah, that's true. So, Julian, who are you going to put in your captain spot?
Look, I'm going with Ayton, too, because you can fit Ayton there for $15,300 and fill out the rest of your lineup pretty much with anybody you want. But if you're somebody that just said you think TJ Warren is going to have better numbers than DeAndre Ayton, then you are somebody that wants to captain TJ Warren, so that makes no sense. But I will be captaining DeAndre Ayton.
La Marca.
I chose with my head and not my heart.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's make it a sweep. Ayton.
Okay.
Okay.
Easy enough. Karin, where can people find value? How about this? This is your area. A cheaper
Harry
player.
Giles. If
Okay.
Marvin Bagley isn't playing tonight, that means more minutes for Harry Giles. Shout out to Harry Giles. Hope those knees stay healthy, Playboy.
We have less than 1 minute now, so just give us your guide, Julian.
I don't think you even need to dig that deep on this slate. So Melton, you don't have to go cheaper than him.
Action, Matt.
Both of those guys, I think, are great plays. I was looking at Giles as like a sneaky under-the-radar pivot, but Karen's all over it. So I like that logic, and for sure Melton is a lock.
All right, slate approved. We have like 30 seconds. Karen, slate approved pick.
Give me Steph against the Knicks.
LaMarca.
Joel Embiid.
Julian.
Russell Westbrook.
There we go.
Great job, guys. Great show. Great audience.
We'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow. This is The Sweat. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. Facebook, YouTube, DK Live, Twitter. We will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m.